CB77 carburetors. They make things go, or at least they provide that fuel-air mixture that's necessary for combustion. Alright, so I'm in better daylight now, and I'm going to try to pull the carbs out. Just looking over things a little bit, when I twist the throttle, it's not pulling the slides up. The cable's looking pretty nasty, but they seem to be bound up somewhere. So first thing I'm going to do, because I want to kind of take them off as a pair, is I'll go ahead and pull the slides off the top, and that's just a matter of twisting this, piece off the top. Obviously the tank and the seat are already removed, and when I get inside here, you'll see that there is a little seal cap, a spring, and then if I keep pulling, the slide will come out. And boy, it's really, it doesn't slide very well at all, which is probably the reason. This is a round slide, and if we pull these pieces back a bit, we can typically take the spring up like that over the side and have this cable go down that little gap as well. Once you do that, you can use a screwdriver to flip that inner retainer out. You can also sometimes push up. Yep, this one pushed up. And what that does is that reveals the jet needle, which looks bent. Lovely. And by the way, that is a 2-3, that it, 23. So darn it, that needle looks bent. Yep. And then I'll pull the retainer clip out and set that aside. And then if you want to take this completely apart, you pull that cable on through. But you know what? I'm not sure I'm going to need to do that. Yeah, well, I'll just go ahead and do it. You just push through like that. When you put this thing back in, you'll pull that little lug back up into the hole, and then wrap everything up above. So that's that. Now I need to catch these things as they come off. So that's really just a spring and that rubber seal, and then this ring's not going to come off because it's on the upper side. Now if I want, and I may need to, pull this out, let's see if we pull through there. There we go. So that's now completely removed. The carb top is off. Alright, now that that's done, I can remove the carb from its fuel supply, and there's a tube right here that feeds fuel from the petcock. And remember, before there were 2 tubes that come from the petcock. A lot of bikes actually have, and I'll see if I can carry this over, a lot of petcocks have only one supply that goes to a distribution tee, but this one has 2 that come off of it. And then this tube here comes from the main fuel supply, and this comes from the sump or the reserve fuel supply, and that's how this switch then switches between the 2 and then feeds both through a strainer down into the carbs themselves. Let's set that back down. So from the petcock, there are those tubes that come to the carbs, and it looks like one of them is bound by a little screwdriver clamp and another by just a pinch clamp. And actually I was able to slide both of them back without really any problem. Now I either need to pull or pry them off. That one pulled off okay, and this other one, I can deal with the other one in a minute. That other one should come off pretty easily. Yep, it did. Good. So they're both off. And while I'm at it, let's just go ahead and do these assembly line style. Do them one at a time, do the same job on each. Alright, so again, remember, we unscrew the top, pull that up, and that slide's really tough to pull out, and I wonder if I'm going to have a bent jet needle here as well. So pull the spring up and over with that cable on the side, push down on the cable, and that comes out, and then the spring comes off, and that little rubber seal comes off, and then this slides out. Then I've got the top here, and remember, we'll push up on the needle, it pops the retainer off, the needle comes out, and he's in better shape. He is a 242. 242 is what it looks like. Interesting. With the clip on the second notch down. This determines how much, whether it's rich or lean when the needle is in its idle position, and then kind of the rate that it starts to add more fuel as the throttle goes up from 0 to 5 or 10% up through 25 and ultimately to 50%. Then that's when the main needle or main jet starts to kick in. So that's how that works. So that's all done, and I've got those set in one spot over here. So while we're over here on this other side, remember we had already pulled the tubes for the petcock, and if I wanted to, I could pull this petcock right off the back side, right out of here. Might as well. There. Now the petcock assembly's off, and I'll clean that real good, and I'll probably replace those tubes, although they look okay. All right, so that's done. The spark plug wire I'll have to pop off, bend this out, remove him, and there's also a choke coupling here that there are a couple cotter pins that join this linkage together, and this linkage, by the way, is what you adjust to make sure that it's opening both at the same amount whenever you're putting the choke on. This isn't the same as carb synchronization. That's a different matter. In fact, I'm not even sure how adjustable that is other than with this cable length. I guess there's I'm not sure what you do there. I'll find out. But anyway, this is just the choke adjustment. So there are a couple bolts here that hold this carb onto the engine. Same thing with the other carb. We'll pull it off as well as with the other one, and then we'll just jimmy the intake air tube out of the way. But I think we probably ought to pull this off first, see if we can get these separated. And I'll need some needle nose pliers. Okay, got my needle nose pliers and a screwdriver. Let's see what works here. Either one should. All I really need to pry, I think, back one. These aren't actual clips, they're just pieces of wire that somebody bent and put in here. And straighten it out. There we go. There's a washer. Came off. And now he's free. I'll do the same thing when I get over to the other side. Let's do that now. Yeah, it's just another piece of wire that somebody just ran through, which is okay. It's not going anywhere. There we go. And a little washer and the other half of that connecting rod. Connecting rod, not that it really matters, but the connecting rod is flat and the short end is facing to my right. That nut that's holding that carburetor on, and that moved nicely. And I like to loosen them just a little bit at a time, at least initially. There we go. They're both done. Just because I get in the habit of whenever I tighten bolts and stuff on an engine to be mindful of that transverse stress. I'm going to walk around but keep the camera mounted. Now I wonder if I can get this thing off without destroying that intake tube. Alright, intake tube's off and now removed. Came right out. Yay. So that's the right carburetor. I'll make sure that I label that. I'm going to put it in a container that oh wow, look at there. Here's the choke. So when it's down, the choke does choke the airflow, enriches it, and when it's open, it opens and lets it flow through. So I will take that carb apart in a few minutes, but let's take the other one off. while we're at it. That was a 10mm wrench. Let's grab that and go to the other side. And oh, I don't have to remove this. It looks like this little keeper goes right onto that bolt for the carb. So I'll just let that hang, and I'll pull. Be a little stubborn. We're just hanging up. Ouch, there we go. There's the other one. Slide down, up. All right, so that's the left-hand carb. So I've got both left and right-hand carbs off. I'm going to go ahead and organize these into a container here in a minute, and we'll be back. Red bucket for the right, blue bucket for the left. R, red, right. See? Tricky, eh?